for us. But outside of those communities, youth are oblivious. And there is a lot of work to be done. And I know the OMA has initiatives. We have initiatives. We're working actually with ECNICO on a project right now. It's everybody's job to be having those conversations. You know, you may not have kids, but you might have nieces and nephews. The opportunity is immense. Whether you work directly for a mine or for a supplier, something you may not be aware, the average salary for somebody working a year. And you don't have to go to school for 10 years to make that happen. You can graduate from school, get some training from a mine, and be making serious cash and living in a community where you can afford to buy a house and a boat and a car. So, you know, all of those things are important. So have those conversations.
That's some family succession plan, right? So it's really great to see that. And there was another organization that was doing safety training, but you know, we talk about how do you get young people interested? Well, safety training was gamified. It was done in a way where you were using augmented reality, you know, as sort of an ocular headset, do all of the training without having to physically, you know, go down into a mine, which is very neat for it. It's a little distracting with whatever's going on next door, sorry, but it was just neat to see. And I think as I've had the opportunity to travel around Ontario, one of the things that I've heard time and time again is young people in communities don't want to leave their communities. They want to be able to live, work, raise a family in the place that their parents did, and they want to have a lot of those opportunities. And I think it's important, you know, one person obviously that's not part of the conversation here today, but is Mr. Bacini at the Ministry of Labour. And we have some incredible programs where we have
people. 74,000 directly employed today in the mining sector, 90,000 in nuclear, for example, and with a plan to nearly double the quantum of people to build. So we are going to be part of the launch of this new critical mineral strategy, Pillar 1. One of the pillars deals with how do we recruit the next generation of workers. From the K-12 education system, making sure that what our kids learn is that mining is part of the clean energy economy. It's not an industry of the past like something we want to perceive. Second element we got to fix is we've got to make sure that our critical mineral strategy, last update 2022, is reflective of where the puck is going when it comes to commodity markets and the opportunities that are rising. We have a great deal of interest from the world because we have what the world needs, and we keep saying this over and over and over. But truly, when I hear, you know, the President of the United States make a declaration, for example,
we've talked about the energy piece. So when you talk to any mine or even any supplier for that matter, the biggest costs are energy and labor. So obviously this conversation, speaking about the communities and speaking about businesses as a whole and building mines and supply chain and all of that, relies on technologies, it relies on labor market, it relies on all of those pieces. So and even at the government level, trying to attract capable people to work in the government is a challenge. So what are some of the things that are being done to ensure capacity from all of those perspectives is being met? Because it's great that we're going to maybe have miners, which is also a challenge, but if you don't have the plug and do it, that's a challenge. So what are some of the things that are being done for that?
Well, I'll speak specifically about the fact that Ontario today released our guiding principles for a new vision paper, right? The new critical strategy.
Road element of it. It's truly a concept until you can really show the private sector and others that there will be access to a lot of the sites that are being looked at, or the sites that are of interest to companies and mining companies across the world. And I have to give, you know, Minister Lecce a lot of credit on this because he's really truly spearheaded this approach through Bill 5 on the permitting systems. And everybody that's sitting in this room, if you followed how government works and if you followed how long it takes for certain projects that have probably been talked about for 10, 15, 20 years, you can actually truly see that this project in the last year has come miles beyond what it was. We have been able to announce just yesterday that we've taken off 5 years on getting these roads completed, that we've worked collaboratively through all ministries to land on things as like EEA.
Working with our partners to make sure that we're kind of taking care of that low-hanging fruit, but we're also doing the things that are necessary to do the right things and making sure that we operate in certain types of business and we really want to do, you know, truly drive that investment into the product. Thank you.
I'll leave it to anyone to answer because it really touches each of your ministries. When we're talking about speeding up the process, and obviously the permit is one thing, but you're doing that in an office, essentially, right? The interim doesn't affect the office. Seasons don't affect the office. Remote locations don't necessarily affect the office. So how are we going to make sure we're able to actually build what we need to build, given all of those factors? We are in Canada. Most of what's happening is in the north, and we're just talking.
To understand how do we start identifying markets for aggregate in the north? We don't necessarily want to be trucking it all up from southern Ontario. So starting to do some mapping, starting to find areas where we're going to be able to find the exact types of aggregates that need to build those roads is extremely important. Looking at ways that we can reduce our permitting time is a huge thing. We're working with Minister Lecce's ministry to do that right now. The Ministry of Natural Resources, this will blow your mind. We issue 20% of the government's permits. 20% of the government's permits out of little old Ontario. And again, a lot of those are those first little. I'm not going to get into the but one of the first ministries community funds, Ontario Days Ministers, of course. So, but working in tandem as we move forward to be able to break down those barriers.
It raises the point that we actually have a massive mountain and we have a strategy to get it to the ground. The third element is we've got to be stronger on permitting. And I know I'm getting ahead of the question, but we fixed one project, one process for those designated. For the rest of you that are looking at expansions of mines, for those that want to look at maybe a junior and looking at advanced exploration, at every step of the process, there is so much red tape we still have to fix. I never want you to think this is the end because we did 1P. It's the beginning of our permit reform agenda. And I think all three of those elements coexist to make this industry much more sustainable for another 100 years in each of
Just touching on the sort of human capital piece of it, had an opportunity for an hour or two this morning to kind of walk around the trade show floor and check out what was going on.
We've talked about the energy piece. So when you talk to any mine or even any supplier for that matter, the biggest costs are energy and labor. So obviously this conversation, speaking about the communities and speaking about businesses as a whole and building mines and supply chain and all of that, relies on technologies, it relies on labor market, it relies on all of those pieces. So and even at the government level, trying to attract capable people to work in the government is a challenge. So what are some of the things that are being done to ensure capacity from all of those perspectives is being met? Because it's great that we're going to maybe have miners, which is also a challenge, but if you don't have the plug and do that's a challenge. So what are some of the things that are being done for that?
Well, I'll speak specifically about the fact that Ontario today released our guiding principles for a new vision paper, the new critical strategy. One of the strategic advantages in Canada is that we want to get processing more value-added investments in the province. Our premier has been very intentional in saying we want to end what he says this ripping and shipping of our raw materials abroad. We stood up a $500 million fund for the first time, 3-year program dedicated to incenting private investors to put skin in the game to build refinery fabrication capacity in the province. Sudbury's Basin is an existing ring of fire, both from extraction to processing and the downstream conversion that we benefit from. But we see more opportunities to domesticate that supply chain. And part of the rationale for why we brought forward and we initiated a new critical mineral strategy, why we're launching that consultation today is to help us figure out a long-standing issue that's perilled Canada, which is how do we do more here at home? It could be agriculture, it could be manufacturing, it could be building.
Help keep them in community and for them to be tooled up and ready to go for when we do get shovels in the ground on those roads and those large-scale infrastructure projects. So I think a lot of those things are happening. And the really neat thing about it, though, is where it wasn't happening sort of organically maybe 10, 15 years ago, it is now. And people are interested. Like it is sort of, coin the term sort of sexy to be in money, right? So it's good to see.
And Rico Eagles here. The skills development fun. Let's point to a success story. Telling our investment, they have been able to deliver highly skilled workers immediately with 100% employment rates with support for Indigenous participation in that labor market. That's a success story we want to replicate over and over and over.
Interesting. We don't really talk about commodities too much. Well, up in the north, obviously we have gold, which everybody's happy about. If you're a gold mine right now, you're not complaining. I think, well, it's going to come back. We're not too concerned because we know we need it. And we know there's a demand across the world. And a good point about President Trump saying he doesn't need Canada. Well, we've seen even just recently in the news just this week, many countries are saying, we'll buy it, and we'll buy all of it. So we know that there's a need. So just from your perspectives in terms of the diversity of the commodity base in the north, how is that going to help continue to strengthen or continue to ensure we're doing business and we're strong and we're able to continue to invest in advanced technology and invest in growth?
I see our mayor from Red Lake is in the House. Fred is with us today. He very much supports that transmission line, I would say. Yes. $1 billion investment. It's going to unlock upwards of $100 billion of economic value to the country through the gold mine at that prolific gold district of Canada. We are doing a new transmission from Barrie to Sudbury, adding 1,000 bidirectional megawatts. That's like half of the Pickering nuclear generating station we're going to send north for northern needs and for economic development. We are building new transmission from Sault Ste. Marie to Sudbury, the Waasigan, 1,800 net new kilometers of transmission. So yes, relationships, first principle. Second principle is then follow through on your word. When governments make commitments to First Nations and businesses and communities. So I really think this has been a game changer. We've got a plan to generate the power to electrify the north and power up these mines, and I wouldn't take that for granted.
Because in the economy, basically, that means the mining economy. Up further north, up in the Muskegowuk, in the Moosonee, the Albany area, their unemployment is 58%. You heard Chief Bruce talk yesterday about what the involvement, full involvement in the economy with Webequie and Martin Falls means. They want the same thing that any other parent wants. They want a better life for their kids than they have. And with that, they get out of poverty, they get their education, they can be a productive member of the economies in their own communities to drive the economy forward. It all works together. Without the economy, nothing else. Nothing else. You can't do this stuff. And Chief Bruce saw that and talks about it.
We need your power. So we are moving power. First of all, Northern Ontario has a demand forecast of 81%, which is much larger than some of the Ontario. So our focus is on generating power in the north for the north. We've unlocked net new hydro led by First Nations to generate power and a much more expansion of other baseload options for the north. But we need transmission capacity. Right now, many of the mines, these are 20, 30, 40 megawatt. These are towns of 30, 40,000 people equivalent of power you will need. And we are one of the unique jurisdictions. In North America, they just did an analysis of the risks of each system plan for each province and state around us. It's literally, we are surrounded by red, meaning high-risk zones. They don't have capacity. They don't have the resource. They don't have the infrastructure to connect the dots. We say an island of civilian, a sea of turmoil.
The last question, I'd like to get some comments about, PDAC is a global show. There are 125, 6, 7 countries here. We did speak to, other areas in the world who do have critical minerals. Why should we, with our global partners, be the reliable source? Why should they be using ours instead of someone else's?
Because we're the best.
We're the best. Well, what makes us the best?
Go to the next question. It's simple. We're the best.
All right. We're clean, we're safe, we're
the best.
all right. Good.